All right, imagine this. In just a single morning, a massive, hypothetical military strike, codenamed Operation Epic Fury, completely redraws the map of the Middle East. We're going to break down how this joint U.S.-Israeli operation could have unfolded, and why the most dangerous part isn't what happened, but what could happen next.
This one line right here, it says everything. This wasn't just some military strike. It was a political earthquake. The whole point wasn't to send a message. It was to fundamentally and permanently shatter the balance of power in the region, and to do it in just a matter of hours.
So let's get into the attack itself. How did Operation Epic Fury actually begin? And what was its immediate and frankly shocking goal?
Okay, the timing here is absolutely critical. The operation kicks off at 9:45 in the morning. Now think about it. Most modern air campaigns, they start under the cover of darkness. This daylight attack, that was a calculated, ruthless choice. It was designed to ensure that Iran's senior leadership would be at their desks, not hiding in some bomb shelter. And the result? Well, within 48 hours, the supreme leader was dead.
But this was about way more than just one man. The strikes also went after the Assembly of Experts. That's the group responsible for choosing a successor. So the goal wasn't just decapitation, it was to shatter the entire line of succession, to create a massive power vacuum right at the top. So officially, the White House laid out these 4 big military objectives. And as you can see, this was not some limited strike. This was a comprehensive assault on every single pillar of Iranian power. Their nuclear program, their missiles, their network of proxies all over the region, and their navy. The whole shebang. But then, he added a 5th objective, one that was openly political. With this one statement, the goal of the entire operation just exploded. It was now explicitly about regime change, which takes this far, far beyond a normal military operation.
And the scale of this thing was just staggering. In the opening salvos alone, more than 1,500 targets across Iran were hit. We're talking everything from command bunkers and air defense sites to naval bases.
And backing up all that firepower was a massive naval presence. That includes 2 full U.S. carrier strike groups, the USS Gerald R. Ford and the USS Abraham Lincoln, projecting an absolutely overwhelming amount of force into the region.
This attack also marked a pretty major technological debut. For the very first time in combat, the U.S. unleashed these things called Lucas drones. You could think of them as America's version of Iran's Shahed drones, but deployed on a massive, massive scale. Their mission was simple. Fly in first, completely overwhelm Iran's air defenses, and basically clear a path for the stealth bombers and fighter jets coming in right behind them.
Okay, so with the initial strike complete, the situation on the ground just immediately spirals into confusion, and that creates this really dangerous power vacuum. Let's take a look at the immediate aftermath.
You know, in the hours after the strike, the battlefield shifts. It moves from the sky to your screen. Information itself becomes a weapon, and trying to separate confirmed facts from propaganda, it becomes nearly impossible. This is what's called the fog of war, and it descended on the region almost instantly.
And you can see that fog of war right here in this table. On one hand, you have one massive, confirmed fact, the death of the supreme leader. But right alongside it, you have this storm of unconfirmed claims. Did Iran really hit a U.S. ship? Were there actually uprisings in the streets? Who was responsible for a strike on a school? In all this chaos, the battle for the narrative begins. And of course, there's a human cost. The numbers start to trickle out. The Iranian Red Crescent reported 555 deaths. And it's important to note, most of those casualties were linked to military and Revolutionary Guard infrastructure, which seems to indicate the strikes were pretty precise. But that cost wasn't just on one side. In Iran's immediate counterattacks on U.S. bases in the region, 4 American service members were confirmed to have been killed.
And this highlights a really crucial point. Iran doesn't have to win a conventional head-to-head fight to inflict a massive amount of damage. Its response is asymmetric. It can lean on its whole network of proxies, it can disrupt regional airspace, and most critically, it can threaten the entire world's economy by going after global shipping.
So all of this brings us to the most critical question. What happens now? The initial strike is over, yeah, but the conflict is really just beginning. And from here, the future could follow one of 3 very, very dangerous paths.
Okay, so scenario 1 is what the U.S. was likely hoping for, an internal collapse, where that power vacuum leads to infighting and chaos. Scenario 2 is a regional explosion, where Iran unleashes its proxies, think Hezbollah, the Houthis, its whole axis of resistance, and sparks a massive multi-front war. And then there's scenario 3, a global economic shock, where Iran decides to play its most powerful card.
And this number is exactly why that third scenario is so terrifying. Roughly 20% of the entire world's oil supply passes through that narrow little waterway, the Strait of Hormuz. It is, without a doubt, the planet's most critical energy choke point.
And here's the really brilliant part of Iran's strategy. They don't actually need to physically close the strait with warships. They just have to make it too dangerous for anyone to travel through. A few well-placed mines, maybe a couple missile attacks, and the insurance costs for oil tankers would skyrocket. Shipping companies would halt all traffic. And that disruption alone would be enough to trigger a complete panic in global energy markets, giving Tehran incredible leverage.
So that leaves us with the ultimate question. With its leadership gone, its military degraded, what will Iran's surviving elements choose to do? Do they fight amongst themselves for control? Do they lash out and start an all-out regional war? Or do they try to disrupt the global economy to force the rest of the world to the negotiating table? You see, the most dangerous part is that none of those outcomes are predictable or easily controlled. Operation Epic Fury might have finished its first phase, but this is absolutely not the end of the story. No, this is the moment the entire story becomes terrifyingly unpredictable.